Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. I am your host today, BJ Cunningham. In a second, I'll be joined by my friend and co-host, Anthony DeBundo. But first, Wondergoal is presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey, Colorado, and Ohio. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 in bonus bets. It's the second legs of the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and we'll kick things off on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Chelsea hosting Real Madrid. Chelsea is a plus 178 home underdog. Real Madrid sitting at plus 140 with the draw at plus 250. Real Madrid is leading by 2 goals. They are a minus 2,000 favorite to advance, while Chelsea is, depending on the book, is sitting around 9-1. To advance, which is just not high enough at all. I literally have no interest in this match. Real Madrid is probably going to go through, but we have to point out that Chelsea last season in this tie made it very, very interesting in the second leg and almost took out Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. But I have no interest on this. Anthony, though, you can't quit Chelsea.
No, I can't. It's very unfortunate. They were pretty poor on Saturday at home against Brighton. We did cash in over, which was cool. Pretty much deserved it. Chelsea was a little fortunate to score, but Brighton fully could have had 3 or 4. I think when you consider this matchup, the first 20 minutes of the match against Real Madrid is kind of what I expected. And I thought, Chelsea had opportunities to get in behind and to score and just really couldn't finish. And really, we've seen this time and time again this year. They failed to convert their one-on-one through Felix. Sterling was denied with a great save from Courtois. In the end, they had 8 box entries via the pass, 0 via carries in the first leg. Now, the second half gets a little bit trickier because of the red card. So that kind of throws the game out of whack. At that point, it never really felt like Chelsea had a chance to score, but I think in this setup at home, Chelsea has to go balls to the wall and has to put out an attacking lineup that can create chances. And I know it's crazy. People, keep reaching out to me and asking me why I keep betting Chelsea and why I think that I'm, backing them to score goals and whatnot. The market has gotten so low on them now that even as a 2-goal home team in the second leg of a Champions League draw against Real, they are still an underdog. Now, I do worry about this way this sets up tactically for Real because they're very comfortable playing without possession and waiting for their transitional moments, and I think they can be very successful. Reece James did not have a great game against Vinicius, who carried the ball into the penalty area 12 times in the first leg, which is pretty scary from a Chelsea perspective, and definitely concerns me from a defensive point of view for Chelsea, because in the end they did concede over 1.5 expected goals, and the defense was not great given what I thought would be better with Conte back in the fold. So I think if you like Chelsea, I want to target their attack, not necessarily their defense. And you can find their first half team total over a half at plus 120. And that's where I'll be looking for this one, because I really don't see a world in which Chelsea is content to sit back and not go after Real Madrid. And we have seen this with Real Madrid pretty consistently in some games this season in the Champions League, where they went on the road to Leipzig earlier in the group stage, conceded early. Celtic should have conceded early, got away with a lot in that match. Even in the last round against Liverpool did nothing in the second half, couldn't do jack once Real kind of locked it up. But that first half could have been 2-2 each end, given how wide open it was. So I'm going to back Chelsea to score in the first half here, and I'm probably going to regret it. But I think in this spot, in this situation, they need to get on the board and they need to come out early. And I'm expecting them to have some success there, even though they've been really poor doing that of late.
Yeah, the thing about it is right after Benzema had the tap in as well, like right after that, Sterling had a huge chance to get one by Courtois, and he just made a crazy good save. So, yeah, it's we'll see. I mean, obviously the onus has got to be on them to come out and go after this. You know, I mean, Frank Lampard, I mean, the three performances that they've put in under him have been very, very poor and much worse than they have under Graham Potter. So that is also a worry for me as well. So
Without a doubt.
So yeah, I agree. I mean, if there's any way to target this, I agree with you that it's to target Chelsea's attack, the positive aggression that they're due for. But other than that, it's looking like it's probably gonna be City versus Real Madrid again in the semifinals. All right, let's move on to a little more interesting match on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Napoli hosting AC Milan. Napoli is a -134 home favorite. AC Milan sitting at 4-1 with the draw at +260. AC Milan is a -142 favorite to advance with Napoli sitting at +116. I have I mean, this first leg was quite exciting both ways from a tactical perspective. And I tend to agree with what bet you're about to make. But I'll let you go first here. What are your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, I like the under here. We don't have a ton of news on Osimhen at this point, and that is a big hinge factor. Ultimately, I was hoping to get a better number and never ended up actually playing a Napoli, who did still create 1.5 expected goals. But I think Milan, this is very similar to what Milan did in the first round of the knockouts against Spurs, where they just kind of sat very deep, absorbed pressure, and gave the opponent a chance to break them down and took the risk. There is a clear drop-off without Victor Osimhen for Napoli, especially given that Simeone is also out. And so with both of them potentially missing here, now you are without a true shot number 9. And we saw with Bayern how much of a problem that was. I think it's a similar issue for Napoli. And again, with Milan being on the road, if Napoli does go up early, that doesn't really change the calculus for Milan, who wants to be in the transitional moments anyway, wants to get Leao, in space up the left wing via outlets, who isn't really going to try to overwhelm with possession, especially away from home. And so I don't really see this game playing out as in a high event way. And so I took some under 2.5. -125 is the best number I was able to find on it. I think this sets up to be a very low scoring, typical, not to be cliche, but typical Italian kind of knockout match where neither team really wants to take a ton of chances. Napoli, I do think, is live to turn this for sure. I mean, of all the 4 matches, this is the biggest closest to a toss up. But I would still rather be Milan with that goal.
I agree. And that's why I do like AC Milan +0.5 at +105. The thing is I was projecting some value on them in the first leg at home, even before Osimhen was announced out. And now the reverse of it, I'm still showing value on them again, because I didn't really take anything away. Like, it was a very even match. Like, I don't think any that you could make an argument of which side deserved to essentially win it. But, the first 20 minutes Napoli were by far the better side. They created the huge chance inside the first minute with Kvaratskhelia. But from that point on, Napoli took 13 shots from the second minute until the 87th minute, when they did create a couple of big chances. Those 13 shots, none of them had an XG rating over 0.1. So AC Milan did a great job of limiting those chances. And I mean, listen, so from a tactical perspective, what Napoli did differently than when they got beat 4-0 was Lobotka and Gisa, they pressed high against Milan when they lost 4-0. And they created a lot of space in behind for Benacer and Tonali to get space and eventually get the ball out wide to Leao and Diaz. And it created a lot of havoc and a lot of pressure on Napoli's defense. Well, they sagged off and they didn't press high, and they basically tried to condense the middle of the pitch, not allow Milan to play through that. But as the match went on, they started pressing higher more and more. And eventually the first goal, how it happened is they both tried to press high and they couldn't close and Milan down in the middle of the pitch, and they had a breakaway chance. And like you said, Milan is outstanding in those transitional opportunities. Now, there's some people suspended for Napoli that I think have a much, much bigger impact than whether Osimhen actually plays or not. And Gisa is going to be out because he got the red card. Kim Min-jae is going to be out because he picked up too many yellows. So now he's suspended for this as well. Kim Min-jae has played 28.290s of the 30 available for Napoli in Serie A this season. And Gisa has played 26.2 of the available 30 90s as well. So the drop off, from Anguissa, it's going to be Tanguy and Doble, which is not, a massive, massive drop off but from a center back perspective, the drop off is to Juan Jesus, who has only played about 7 full 90s in Serie A this season. So that's a problem for Napoli, especially when the onus is going to be on them to press and go forward. Given what we saw in the 4-0 defeat and Milan being able to sit deep, being able to absorb that pressure and then counter, it's a very, very dangerous game to play. Now, Kvaratskhelia was much better than he was in the 4-0 defeat. They started using him a little more centrally to get him some space as well, which did end up working out pretty nicely. But again, like Napoli didn't create a ton of high quality chances throughout the entire match outside of that first one in the first minute. So I didn't really take anything away from that first leg that made me think that Napoli should have absolutely won and they're deserving of being a -135 favorite here. So instead of taking Milan to advance, I'm gonna take the price discount and take AC Milan at +0.5 at +105. I do only project Napoli at +113. So I'd say anything even money or better on Napoli is good, or on AC Milan is good enough for me on them to advance. All right, let's move on to Wednesday. The headliner is obviously Bayern hosting Manchester City. Bayern is sitting at +170, Manchester City at +137, with the draw at +280 at Bet365. The to advance line is Bayern is a 15-1 underdog to advance, and City sitting at -8,000. I didn't really have much here in going into the first leg. I thought the line was about right. City did get steamed towards match time. I think they closed around -165. From going from -135, and being a road favorite up 3 goals is interesting to say the least. But I know you're going to take the under. That's probably the only way I would play this. I'll let you get into it, but City, for the first 30 to 45 minutes, they were very, very passive and sitting off and trying to condense the field, and they didn't press high the way that they normally did. And even the Upamecano mistake, it wasn't like a mistake where, hey, City was just the pressure was unrelenting and he just couldn't get it out of his own end. Like, he was trying to dribble out and City was staying back and they were cutting off all the passing lanes that he had. They did the reverse shots after when they did the highlight after it happened, and he had nobody to pass to. So he was kind of just stuck. So if City's going to do that again and just capitalize on Bayern's mistakes with Bayern having to go for it, I mean, you maybe could talk me into a City, but again, the price is a road favorite as being up 3 goals. So for me, this is a pass. But you do like the under.
Yeah, I'm going to bet it now. I liked I leaned under 3 in the first leg. You had to pay about -120, 125 in that. And it's just a lot for a number that I thought was pretty close to right. And so I'm not going to force plays just because it's the Champions League quarterfinal and I want to have action on the games as I'm watching them. So, but now it's 3 under -105. I've seen as low. And I just wonder why it's the same number. And I know that no book is going to put up a 2.75 because that would get hammered over immediately. And I understand that. But this is now Manchester City in a role where they don't need to score. They're sitting on a lead. So there's no incentive for them to continue to try to run up scores. This is a City that, to be honest, I agree. I didn't think they played Haaland was invisible for the first 45 minutes of the match. He was barely a factor in the first half. I thought Bayern did a pretty good job defensively. But again, it was the Upamecano mistake. It was a Rodri banger, which, happens. The Upamecano mistake does ultimately come from City applying a lot of pressure to have the ball. I know that it wasn't directly on Upamecano, but playing into his weaknesses as a ball passer and as a ball carrier is something that clearly Guardiola picked up on and took advantage of. But and this is something we talked about with Eric as well, but Upamecano probably won't see as much pressure on the road here or at home here. I don't think he'll be relied on as much in build up, because I have to think Tuchel needs to make some type of adjustment to build up elsewhere or to try different things. But the problem for Bayern is that I don't know where their attacking shots are coming from right now, because Choupo-Moting, I know we've slighted him on this show. And we've said, oh, he's not Lewandowski. They're getting fewer shots. He's not as good of a focal point. That's why they have more draws this year. And like, I think that's generally true. But without him, it gets worse, way worse, because Gnabry's been in terrible form. Sadio Mane's fighting his teammates, and they don't have a true out-and-out striker at all at the club. They're not going to start Matisse Tell. And so the whole attack, like, it's hard enough to score on City's defense, and it's hard enough to hit them. You almost have to have like a clear plan of how to attack in transitional moments, because you're just not going to get a lot of settled possession. And they don't have a target man. They're not playing like a true false nine. The one guy they are playing there has been in terrible form for the last 10 weeks and maybe leaving the club this summer with Gnabry. So there's a lot of question marks there. So I just don't really know if Bayern has enough teeth right now to expose this team,
right,
and make this competitive enough for City to have to come out. So I took the under. I think that's like the narrative angle. From a numbers perspective, I am right at 2.88. So like, I don't have like a huge edge here. Curious what your number is, but
I'm at 2.81.
Yeah. So like a little bit under, but unless this comes out and Bayern comes out firing, I don't know that this game ever gets that close.
Right.
So I'm taking the under. One other thing is that Bayern has not looked consistently good in attack for more than just one match. I mean, they drew Hoffenheim 1-1.
They did nothing.
It was very unimpressive
performance. They did some, but like they didn't do Bayern level of like 3 expected goals. Like, no, where they create like 1.5.
They didn't do shit. Yeah, it was an easy Hoffenheim result. Honestly, they could have won it late. And then Pavard scored the only goal, and it was like a deflected off of a set piece. So it was kind of fortunate. Yeah. And they had 1 goal at Freiburg. They lost to Freiburg in the cup. Like this, Dortmund keeps dropping points, but this Bayern team is a pure fade for me, even more so than normal. For the rest of the season, I have to look at the schedule as to who they play, but the market is still high on this team, and I think there's a lot of holes and questions.
Yeah. So something also interesting, which plays to your under as well, is something that Pep has been doing for the last 3 or 4 or maybe a couple months now, ever since he took essentially Kyle Walker and Rico Lewis out of the team, is he's playing 4 center backs at the back and also Rodri. So it gives him the ability to play 5 at the back if he really, really needs to. And obviously Akanji and Ake are both very versatile center backs. But what it also does is it creates, since they play a little bit more centrally than somebody like Cancelo or Walker, where they want to play more wide in them of, actual left or right back role, is it allows, why is Grealish having such a great season? It's because he's actually able to stay more wide. Like Cancelo always does these overlapping runs or whatever it is, and it's fine. And, it does work for City. But the way that Grealish plays well and how he played well at Aston Villa is he gets the ball out wide and he attacks defenders heading centrally. And he's been doing it over and over and over again because Ake has been staying so somewhat central and forcing basically defenders to stay somewhat inward, and then Grealish gets one-on-one opportunities. So, the ability for City to play that defensive at the back and have, 5 guys who are all ball carriers who can also sit back and be big defenders to defend inside. And like you mentioned with Tuchel, like he's still trying to figure out who his number 9 is. Like you mentioned, Gnabry's not in good form. Like he's not playing Choupo-Moting. He can't play Mane. He's probably not going to play Sané there. He might play Mueller as a false 9, but I
think it's going to be Gnabry again. We don't know if Choupo-Moting could be back. That is one thing to monitor. He was ruled out pretty early for the weekend. They do get the extra day here, but it seems like he'd likely be a sub at best. But we don't know the situation with his injury yet. That would certainly make me a little more hesitant. But like you said, Gnabry and Sané and Mane have not been.
And here's the thing with Bayern as well, against a lot of teams, especially in possession, they, Tuchel's been messing around with, when they do in build-up play, whether it be like a 2-3-5 or a 4-2-4. And essentially what that does, it compresses the final line, allows them to create numerical advantage against the last line of defense. Well, if City's going to play essentially with Rodri, essentially 5 center backs at the back, you cannot create those type of numerical advantages with them in the box. So I agree with you. I haven't looked at what Bayern's team total is, but maybe under 1.5 might be a play if it's at a decent price. But other than that, I'm passing. Like we talked with Eric, like Bayern might German this thing and make it interesting. But other than that, this is a pass, and City probably moves on to play, or almost a certainty they move on to play Real Madrid. All right, let's wrap things up for the Champions League on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time as well. Inter hosting Benfica. Inter has a 2-goal lead. They are a +115 home favorite. Benfica sitting at +240 with the draw also at +240. Inter is -2,200 to advance. Benfica sitting at 10-1 to advance as well. I do have a pick for this match. I did bet Benfica early, if you follow them in the app, but that has since been bet out of range. So I have a different pick, but I'll let you get your thoughts in here first.
I don't have a ton of thoughts, to be honest. I mean, this is how Inter wants to play, right? They have been in a ridiculous finishing slump.
Yep.
With Martinez and Dzeko and Lukaku, whoever plays striker for them has not scored anything forever. And I think I'm hoping that positive regression comes back for us in a potential semifinal against another Italian team, or final for our Inter ticket. If any of you guys joined me on that from a month ago now. But I don't have a ton of thoughts here. Benfica weren't bad in the first leg. Like, it was a pretty even match. Just their shots didn't go in. What was impressive about the performance in general from Inter was that they didn't concede any big scoring chances. Correct. They did a very good job of limiting the quality and just giving them a ton of quantity. And then, sometimes you get burned by that, and like one of them goes in, you're like, damn. But in this case, it worked out for them. They had a good approach. They ended up getting, more than the result they needed. Now they come home. I don't have a ton of I don't want to bet the under here, because I know the minute I do bet an Inter under, they're going to go off and finally finish their chances. And they could be good in transition here, but I'm passing here. Easier pass for me.
Yeah, I will take the under 2.5 at -115. Honestly, I was a little surprised to see it priced this lowly. Like, I have 2.31 goals projected for this match. But I mean, here's the thing. It's like something that Benfica really struggled with in the first leg is their build-up play. Like, they're so used to being in Portugal, having a ton of possession, building out from the back, and teams not providing too much pressure on them, because obviously, those smaller sides, they're so worried at them playing in behind them. But it was clear from the get-go that Inter wanted to make the match very, very transitional, and Benfica does not. They're a very build-up, slow base type team. Inter did press them okay. That was something I was looking for going into the match. Pass per defensive action was 11.6. They did force 5 high turnovers, so a decent pressing performance. But now they lead 2 goals on aggregate. So the game plan completely changes. And guess what? We literally just saw this in the round of 16 against another Portuguese side. In that tie, Inter, the second leg against Porto, they didn't press the same intensity as the first leg. First leg of the tie against Porto, their passes per defensive action was 6.8. Second leg, it was 13.4. Their average defensive height in the first leg against Porto was 53.5 yards from the goal. They tilted the field on Porto. They were really dominant in possession. Then once they had a 1-goal lead in the second leg, their average defensive position was 38.5 yards. It's just a drastic change. They became incredibly passive, and I don't see that changing anywhere here, because guess what? They have a 2-goal lead. So even if they concede once,
and they're home,
they're at home, it's not like they're just going to be like, oh crap, we just conceded. Let's come out. Let's start pressing. Let's start trying to get the ball moving forward. No. And, if you look at and this is also a good lesson and it was a good lesson against Porto as well, is not looking at, single game XG and just being like, that's what happened. Because if you look at our good friend Mark Stats, his single game XG on the Inter Benfica match was 3.7. And if you look at how the game played out, though, is before the Barea goal in the 51st minute, there were 5 total shots and 0.29 XG created. The goal happens, completely changes everything, changes the complete dynamic and complexion of the match. Obviously, Lukaku also had a penalty, so that also factors in. But, Benfica, when they had to be more aggressive, they created a couple of big quality chances, and they just couldn't find the back of the net. And then, as things went on, Inter still was pretty passive overall for the match. I mean, in total for the match, they created 0.6 XG from open play. Take away the Barea goal, it's like 0.45 of other shots other than the penalty and the Barea goal. So Inter's most likely going to sit back. Benfica might have some success breaking them down. They still are a very good offensive team, but Benfica just lost in the Portuguese Primeira Liga to Chaves on a 94th minute winner. I went and looked at the lineup they played. It was a pretty much bang on like their normal starting 11. So that's a tad concerning.
Brutal spot.
Yeah, it was a brutal spot for them.
They haven't lost a game in Portugal in like 30 years. Now they've lost a couple in a row, but
but
a little concerning. But I mean, it
is a bad spot, but it's also like if you play your normal starting 11, it's also kind of indictment. Like, and I know you've already won the league and maybe you're not taking it seriously, but it's like, all right, well then why are you playing your normal starting 11? So I don't know. But
have they won the league? I don't think they've actually clinched.
I mean, they're pretty much. I think they were 6 points clear of Porto. I want to say before the weekend.
It hasn't won the league yet.
They haven't won the league yet,
so
I guess they had to take it seriously. But anyway, project 2.3 goals, and Inter's going to stay very passive. That's basically the summary of it. So I do like under 2.5 goals at -115. All right,
real quick, Benfica has lost 3 in a row now, including the Porto and then Inter and Chaves. You know how many losses they had between the beginning of the season and the start of this losing streak?
0.
The answer is 1. They lost an away match to Braga, 3-0.
Yeah, because I know they drew PSG in both of their chances, and I believe they beat Juventus.
They swept Juventus. Yep. Remember back in the days when Benfica was plus 350 to advance from that group? My God.
We'll hopefully we can find something like that for the next Champions League. It'll be whatever group Lazio's in. I'll tell you that.
Hopefully we get an entertaining knockout stage because this has been incredibly dull.
I know this has been brutal. I mean, Milan derby would be fun. Although Napoli, whatever the Italian mixture is, it'll be fun. And then City Real will be hopefully fun as well.
Will it? City might just.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean. City might just cook them, and then City just roars on to the final, and we're all either you or me are sitting there with a big ticket, just knowing it's dead.
I'm trying to what was the best match of the Champions League knockout so far? The Chelsea one, really? Is that it? Like the Chelsea Dortmund match was probably the best match. I don't remember a more interesting one. Liverpool Real, the first leg, like that was okay.
Yeah, like the 7 goal. I'd say that 7 goal one was probably the most fun to watch. But like, did we have any like late drama?
Not one. I mean, Tottenham almost equalized against Milan. The Chelsea Dortmund, Porto Inter was somewhat interesting, but like every other, it's been a really bad.
Benfica rolled, City rolled,
Napoli
rolled. Yeah, it's been boring. So let's move on to a little more fun. The Europa League.
This is going to be fun.
This is going to be really fun. We're just going to, I like Roma to win against Feyenoord. Like the simplest thing is
shocker.
It's like, Roma missed a penalty. Feyenoord scored a goal from outside the box. Like it was a very, very even match. Roma comes home. I got them projected -137. That'll be my favorite bet. But I think the more interesting discussion is like on the futures odds to actually win, because all these legs are still way live, all of them. With United giving up 2 own goals to Sevilla. Sevilla's now live. Obviously, the Juventus Sporting one is very live. And then Union Saint-Gilloise got a result on the road against Leverkusen. So now we have everything to play for. And what sorry, my microphone got kicked off. 1 second. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Before we started, recording the show, we pulled up 538 to see, what they had, because we were kind of talking about maybe a Feyenoord at 9-1, and 538 has Feyenoord as the favorite at 21% to win the Europa League. So, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with at this point. I still believe that United, I guess, should be the favorites, maybe along with Leverkusen, but all of these legs are still very, very live. But yeah, Roma for me. What's your best bet in the Europa League, and just general thoughts overall about how exciting this has been?
Yeah, I mean, Sporting beat the shit out of Juventus in the first leg
absolutely.
At Juve, and they lost. And they lost on a late goal. I was very upset. Lost for me, had the +0.5. I think they're live to still turn this. I am already invested on like plus 160 to advance, so I'm not going to necessarily add more at plus 210, plus 220, but they're only down a goal. They're coming home. They're favored in that, and I think they're just as good as Juventus, if not better. I know Juventus has been excellent defensively, but they're not infallible, and they have defensive regression coming, and they've overperformed all season. Szczesny went out with an injury. He may miss. It looks like he didn't play today against Sassuolo. So his injury would be massive given how much he's been the reason they've overperformed defensively by so much. It's not like Sporting can't create chances against this team. They put up over 1.5 expected goals in the first leg. So it's not, to me, it seems like I kind of lean toward the over, but I think Lisbon is live here. I'm going to take some plus 125, plus 130 on the money line. That's probably my favorite side again. I mean, it was my favorite side last week. They won on XG. They outplayed them. They're a better team. They lost the match, lost the bet, but the market has moved steadily toward Juventus in the last week since that match, and I don't agree with it. So I'm going to take Lisbon as my best bet. From a futures perspective, though, I mean, look, Feyenoord is still 9-1. And look, I love Roma. We all love Roma. We all have Roma, 23-1 tickets, but Nord is minus 170 to advance. Roma, their style makes me think this is going to be a coin flip till the end here. Like, I think Roma probably does win, but I think it's also probably going to be a 1-goal game, and thus you have the risks of penalties and whatnot. And I like the matchup for Feyenoord and Roma, whoever advances against Leverkusen or Union Saint-Gilloise, who is not out of it. They're tied as well, coming home. They're, plus 160 to advance. So I think I'm going to add some Feyenoord here.
Yeah.
If you remember from last season, Feyenoord's been a team that I've generally been higher on. And somebody actually DM'd me last week and was like, what am I missing here? Roma should have no problem. Like, they should win this tournament. And I'm like, well, Feyenoord's pretty good. They are a winger factory in their ability to just find wingers, develop them, and then sell them on for more money. And they have a really fun group of players. So I kind of like their transitional stuff here. If Roma's going to have to commit more numbers forward than they're used to try to get back into this tie. So, between Jimenez and whatnot, like, and Idrissi, like, that's a really fun attacking group in transition. So I think they can absolutely cause some problems here. And I'm going to take some Feyenoord 9-1, because if they do advance, I'm perfectly fine riding the Feyenoord wagon.
Yeah, I mean, they could be facing Gilloise because they weren't. Gilloise honestly was not that bad against Leverkusen. It wasn't like, I know Final XG will say, oh, it was Leverkusen 1.4 to 0.6, whatever. Like Gilloise, and they've showed this against Union Berlin and everybody else in the Europa League. I mean, we forget they won their Europa League group. Like, they're really, really good in transitional opportunities, and they're very, very comfortable sitting back and getting the ball moving forward. And, Leverkusen, although they've been much better under Xabi Alonso, like, for the longest time, they've been so vulnerable in transition defense, and it could plague them again here, especially that result happened in Germany. Now we're going back to Belgium. So yeah, very, very difficult tie there. I mean, I might take some Sporting Lisbon at 14-1 to win the Europa League. Like, even if they play Manchester United, I don't think that they're going to be, that significantly out of it. I know we're both very, very low on Juventus, at 4-1. I have no interest in that, but
think about that for a second, though. Think about the price there.
I know,
because you just said it. Like, Lisbon is 14-1. They are a bigger underdog. They're an underdog to advance against Juventus, which I mean, they should be an underdog. They're down a goal, right, but I think they have a good chance of turning it. But even then, they're getting United most likely.
Yep,
guaranteed in the semis, and then they'd have to beat whoever came out from the other side. Feyenoord is already up a goal, gets the easier semifinal, and they're only 9-1. So, like, the price is just surprising to me.
Yeah,
on Feyenoord, and so I'm officially on the Nord wagon.
And
that way I won't be devastated if Roma does go out on pens, because we have a good bet with Roma 23-1, and I think they have a very good chance. It's almost like a hedge in a way that if they don't advance, then we have another ticket to ride here.
Yep, I just bet it as well. And if Union Saint-Gilloise goes to the final, I'll be in a puddle. Let's just put it that way, because now I have Roma 20.
You already have Leverkusen, right?
I already have Leverkusen 8-1, and now I've got. But yeah, no, it really doesn't make. I mean, unless the market's telling you that Roma has a significantly better chance if they advance to win the Europa League than Feyenoord, I don't necessarily believe that to be true if they're both sitting at 9-1 right now. So
I agree.
I agree.
I like Roma more. I think Roma's the better team. But like I was saying, like I liked Feyenoord pick them in the first leg if you could get him, even money minus 110 at home. I don't think there's a huge gap between these two teams. It was the two teams I did not want to draw when the draw came out was obviously United and then Feyenoord. And so look, United now with the injuries piling up for them too, I think that makes them a very vulnerable favorite in this competition. So
United is always vulnerable, Anthony.
Not today, they weren't.
Yeah, not today. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Wondergoal. Thank you all for listening. We will be back on Thursday morning to preview the weekend slate of the Premier League, couple FA Cup semifinals along with the rest of Europe. So for Anthony DeBundo, I'm BJ Cunningham. Thank you again to our sponsors at Bet365, and we'll see you all on Thursday morning. Good luck with your bets.